I'm here with Miles Kirby from Qualcomm Ventures. Miles, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
So, first of all, why does Qualcomm Ventures exist?
We're a strategic fund founded back in 2000, trying to help grow the overall ecosystem for Qualcomm. So Qualcomm's business really comes from two main things, is licensing of 3G and 4G technology, which is about 2/3 of our bottom line earning. And then the other third comes from chipset sales. So anything that drives the overall ecosystem and moves people onto 3G and 4G handsets is good for Qualcomm. And so we make investments in the ecosystem that help drive that progression.
So how active is Qualcomm Ventures and where are you active?
Yeah, so we are a very active investor. We have now 19 investment professionals around the world. About 60% of them are outside the US. And we currently have 80 portfolio companies. We run a seed program every 18 months, and we invest in early stage, but we do a sort of a broad sweep across sort of early stage to later stage. So very active investor.
And tell me a bit about your personal background.
Be glad to. So I've actually been with Qualcomm for a while. I was in the venture group for a number of years, and we actually acquired one of the startups that I was on the board of. And so I took an operational role back within Qualcomm with that startup, which was a great experience. And then from there I moved into corporate R&D and did internal startups. So this is interesting to be in a large corporation, but actually within inside starting up new businesses. So we started businesses around wirelessly charging your phone without having to plug it in. Augmented reality, where you can overlay information on top of the real world. We did a project around indoor position location, a new processor based on the architecture of the human brain. So a whole lot of really interesting things. So I did that for about 5 years, and then a quick operational role internationally, and then rejoined the venture group here in London.
And what areas of technology are you particularly focused on in 2013?
So Qualcomm, trying to drive the overall ecosystem, there are a number of places that we look. Infrastructure, try and improve performance, reduce cost on the infrastructure side. On the handset side, new technologies, again, improve performance, reduce cost, add new functionality. Accelerometers was one area that we invested a few years ago. And then applications and content, which of course are critical to make the devices attractive to end users. We also look at healthcare, and machine to machine is a big area for us.
And so what are you particularly excited about? What really gets you energized?
So we have a couple of areas that I think are quite interesting. There's a 1000X sort of initiative, and then we have another one, which is the sixth digital sense.
What do you mean by 1000X? What is 1000X?
So in simple terms, if you look at a doubling in data demand every year for the next 10 years, you end up with 1,000 times the data requirement that we have today. And obviously that's a substantial increase, and the existing networks aren't going to be able to meet that demand on their own. And so there are a number of different things that we're doing to help drive that capacity increase. For example, reducing down the cell size so you can have a small cell at home that provides you coverage at home so that you're not loading the macro network. We also look at using Wi-Fi, other air interfaces to take data off the macro network. Also a lot of things around intelligently using the spectrum. How do you decide which spectrum to use when in a power efficient way? And that's really key. As you get more and more air interfaces, more and more radios, you don't want to have all of those on the whole time. So you have to be very careful about how you select which one to get the best performance and the best battery performance.
And tell me about the sixth sense concept.
Yeah, that's a very interesting one. So if you think about the one device that you carry with you pretty much everywhere, it's your phone. And your phone knows where you're going, it knows your appointments, your email, what you buy online. And so this device, today you have to kind of ask it for information, and it's hard to do. You're walking around, you're on a tube, trying to get information. But what if this device could actually know about you and actually could give you the information you wanted when you wanted it? So, for example, you're ready to go to an appointment, and there's delays on the tubes. So now it tells you maybe now instead of leaving with half an hour to spare, you should leave with 45 minutes to spare. What about if you are out at lunchtime, you don't have any appointments planned? Okay, maybe he's looking for lunch. And there's a friend who's half a mile away who's sitting in a sushi restaurant. You happen to like sushi, you happen to like your friend. Maybe you could suggest that you could go over there, and maybe you can also send a 10% off coupon that goes with it. And I think that way it's not push advertising that consumers are going to feel is intrusive, but it's going to be something that's very helpful. And I think if you can do that, there's huge value there.
And this sounds like something that Google or Apple might do. Right. Why is Qualcomm interested in that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think the reason is that you need to do this in a low power way. If you're not careful with this and you have all of the apps pinging all of the hardware the whole time, your battery's going to be dead in no time. But I think what we can do is we can enable this in low power hardware. We have a number of different sort of processors and DSPs where you could run some of the processing. If you do this in an intelligent way, you can really make it very power efficient and actually pass up the information to a developer through an SDK so that they don't have to understand how all the hardware works. They could just say, I want to know when my user is heading out to lunch. I want to know when my user is leaving to go home in the evening because they've done this for the last 4 days in a row. And I think that's really the key, having the hardware to do this in a power efficient way and simplify it for the application developers. I think that's going to go a long way to help enabling a lot of these applications.
Finally, why would a hot startup want to work with Qualcomm Ventures? What's the appeal of Qualcomm?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think that when you look at financial VCs are great, and then you've got corporate VCs who can sort of also bring other assets to bear as well. So Qualcomm now is a worldwide corporation. We work with all the major OEMs, and we also have multiple product businesses as well. So as a portfolio company of Qualcomm, not only do you get financial investment, which is of course important, but you also get connections to a lot of the business units, the operators, the handset OEMs, and we've even got some portfolio companies who are looking to provide their services that run on top of our hardware. So if we can build in their software into our reference designs that can run on our hardware, now it enables those startups to be able to go to OEMs and say, by flicking this bit, you can now turn on this service that we're providing with very, very little extra work on the side of the OEM. So that's hugely powerful and really lowers the barrier to entry and can really help those startups accelerate their trajectory.
And Miles, why is Qualcomm Ventures supporting Hot Topics events?
So over here in London, I've just rejoined the venture group, as I mentioned, over here in London. One of the things that we're looking to do is to get more exposure for Qualcomm Ventures and Qualcomm as a whole. We find that the Hot Topics events are of great discussion, a great cross-section of the industry. I personally also really enjoy the networking and all the different people that you get to meet at the events as well. So I find it sort of educational, great discussion, and also great networking.
Miles, thank you very much.
My pleasure.